Hi, I'm Jason Anderson.
And hi, I'm Lisa Haller. We are the programmers for the Shortcuts program here at the Toronto International Film Festival. We want to welcome you to one of our 2 Q&As for Shortcuts Program 2. We are very happy to be joined by a number of people that are in the program who directed these films, and we would like them to introduce themselves and their films for you today. So I'll start with you, Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Fyffe-Marshall. I'm the director and writer of Black Bodies.
Hi, I'm Lkhagvadulam Purev-Ochir. I'm from Mongolia, and I'm here with the short film Mountain Cat.
Hi, I am JJ, and this is Yngwie.
Right.
And we're from Moldybyrd Studio, and we directed and wrote Pilar.
And animated.
And animated.
Yeah.
And so I'm Diana, also director of Pilar. So we're a team together, 3 of us. And we're at Moldybyrd Studio.
Great.
Thanks so much, and thanks first of all so much for being here, but most importantly for making your amazing films. And we're so excited to be able to present them at TIFF this year. And I guess just for starters, we'd love to hear from each of the filmmakers about, their inspirations for their films and really kind of why they felt so compelled to tell these incredible stories, which are all, I think, very different, but as we will explore, also have some really interesting connecting threads as well. But maybe Kelly wants to start just to talk about kind of what compelled you to make Black Bodies.
Definitely, Black Bodies was inspired by a lot of things, mainly the current society. Although I didn't make it in 2020, it's very relevant today, and it's just about the themes of the film and the inspiration behind the film is how Black bodies are treated in the 21st century, how Black men and Black women are specifically treated, and how police violence continues to interrupt our daily lives. And so for me, I made Black Bodies as a way to give people that don't understand that experience more intelligence, more apathy towards what it feels like to be Black during this time.
Great, thank you very much.
The Mountain Cat short film is actually connected to a feature film that I'm developing. The story is based on an encounter that I personally had. So in the short film, the beginning of the film is more or less exactly as it transpired in my own life, but it doesn't, the ending is more of an imagination. And although I did make the short film as a way to kind of explore some characters and the setting of the feature film, it also really took on a life of its own and became its own thing. Yeah.
Thanks.
About Pilar, first of all, it's a hand-painted animation. And so why did we want to paint the whole animation? Well, first of all, I think it's because we just love the craftsmanship and painting on its own. Because we're illustrators, instead of more illustrators than animators. So we're already really exploring in what kind of way you can tell a story, also by the medium itself. And we think it has something very magical, and there's a lot of transformation going on in our film, and that's also a very important part of our storytelling, is transformation. And we love that's something we were exploring in the story, because the character tries to find a way to her inner animal, and that's a very it's a very inner world. It's very inner-worldly, and we love to express this in this very painterly way. So it was one of the things why we got into painting the animation. So perhaps JJ, you want to tell some extra about it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't want to go on and on, but we are with 3 people, so we're trying to keep it a bit short. I mean, especially with inspiration for the movie, we love folklore, we love myths, and this is a very sort of a modern twist on an ancient fairy tale of a person transforming into an animal or a creature to actually become more whole and more themselves. So yeah, and the reason why we paint it is because you can make those transformations so more vivid and almost more real. So it sort of fits, especially because of our background.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, the film is so beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Kelly, you've talked and spoken about, excuse me, momentum and making ripples where you are. Can you speak a little bit about how you shifted your career to make work that fights social justice and strives to make positive change in the community and, you know, to anyone who's watching the film?
Definitely. I think something I always get asked about is like, when did I become an activist? And I think living in the Western world as a Black woman, you're kind of born an activist. Just by existing, you are an activist. And so I've always looked at entertainment and thought, like, what happens if it made a change? What happens if the status quo shifted every time you watched a film? What happens if the person that you were when you came in was different? And so I took it upon myself to do that. And so with my saying, make ripples where you are, like every time that I do something, I have to be intentional. And I believe that, you know, everywhere we go, if we make the small changes that we need to make, then the world would change, and the change would be what we need to, where we need it to be. If we all make ripples, it would become a tidal wave, and that would be the change that the world needs. And so with my films, I try to do that with every film, so that when you come in and the person that you leave is someone different. I believe films is like the only place where you really let your guard down. And so it's a great place for us to talk about how to be better humans. And so that's how I realized that film could really push the status quo and change perspectives and fight for people that aren't able to fight for themselves.
Yeah, and you're able to beautifully do this so poetically in the film as well. Do you want to talk about why you chose that type of script or the type of presentation of your characters?
Yeah. So for me, I enjoy with my films, my past films and this film, I like to pull the audience in and then hit them with the message that I have. And so that's kind of my themes throughout all of my films, Haven and Marathon, my past short films. And so I decided that I would really pull the viewer in to then, like, what's going on here, trying to figure out the scene, and then show really what happens when police violence interrupts Black lives. What does it look like when all the people that have died at the hands of police violence and of racism, they become hashtags and then they disappear? Where did all those people, where all those bodies go? What would happen if we had to confront all of those bodies at one time? And so that's what Black Bodies is.
Yeah, I mean, it's stunning, it's chilling, it's so affecting. I think it's going to make a huge impact on audiences. And yeah, and you're able to do something so concisely too, which is very impressive. So congratulations, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, but yeah, just wonderful job. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something. I think, I mean, especially these 3 films are the power of the visuals is all very strong, very remarkable. And just sort of thinking about methodology, I'd love to hear more from the Pilar team about, I guess, I mean, just how what was this sort of methodology to sort of create? I mean, how many paintings? I mean, how long was this process? Because obviously this is something that takes a while, to put it mildly.
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah. Well, to be exact, it was like, I think we painted about 3,100 paintings, but then on 108 canvases. So it was a really stop motion way of making the film. So we actually painted the background, put the characters in, and then painted the characters over the canvas frame by frame, and then made a picture frame by frame. And of course, before we could paint it in the direct way with the direct composition and everything, we had to do a 2D animation, so we can put that on the live action, the live view where we were using to make the actual painting. So it was like making the animation 2 times, one in 2D lines, and then in the voluminous way on the canvases. So that was quite a struggle, and we were very glad that we were with the 3 of us, though that's still not a very big team. We also had some terrific Belgian animators who helped us making the 2D line animation. So that was quite a process.
And was it, I mean, similarly, did it take a long time for this, I mean, just the sort of visual vocabulary of the film to develop? I mean, was there a lot of this long decision process about that?
Yes.
Sure. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
We made a shorter animation before, and it was painted as well. And it was partly because we wanted to paint an animation, but also because we were not animators or trained in any way. And we knew a bit of stop motion, how that would work. So just the process of making a more adult and more current kind of movie, we definitely had probably a year, maybe 2 years, where we just discussed back and forth, what do we want to make and how would paint actually be sort of part of the theme as well. And it took quite a while. This whole project probably took about 6 years, something about that, but also with gaps in between, of course. But we were just with the 3 of us, so it took a while.
Yeah, but the advantage was of working with the 3 of us. We have a really good way of communicating ideas, so it was really organic, and we were involved in every step of the development, so we could bounce ideas back and forth and make storyboards, and then go back to the script, and then make paint tests and colors, and we were all doing it at once. So it evolved over.
And that was a lot of fun.
All the time, yeah.
Well, it's great to hear that it was fun and it wasn't just all work. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not like we didn't suffer or anything, or else we wouldn't have made it. But it was a lot of fun just working with the 3 of us and having such a respect for each other and for our crafts and our backgrounds. And there was no bad idea, and we just wanted to make something together.
I also think that during the process we kind of made the story every time a little more personal. So we love animals. We're vegetarians, and so we also we like to travel from one person to another. We're very open-minded people. So I think we try to make a story about a woman that's struggling within her, trying to find freedom, but the way and then the way she finds freedom is a very creative way, is more metaphorically, but then that you would have in normal life. It's kind of hard to explain.
There's also information in Mountain Cat too. You see this young woman who has been struggling under kind of the thumb of her mother for her health issues, and then suddenly there's a turn in the film where she expresses herself in a much different, much more powerful way. She kind of emerges as this feisty animal in her own sense. So I guess for this film, do you want to talk about the transformation of your character and also finding the balance between respecting the characters in the film, especially when it comes to, you know, the spirituality and the shaman, and, you know, how you developed these characters so that they both kind of transform throughout your film, other than what you first expected they would do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I think the challenge was to present the character in such a way where she's not fully expressing how she's feeling, but that somehow the audience would feel it through the camera work, through the atmosphere, with the way the film is edited, so that in the later part of the film, when she actually does start to express how she truly feels, it doesn't come as quite, it's almost like it's a surprise, but it makes sense in a way. So the challenge was to not put it into words, but to have it in the film somehow, that there is something brewing inside her that she herself might not truly understand. But on the hill, towards the end of the film, it just comes out of her. And it's not something that, you know, she has thought about before. It's not something planned. It just kind of happens. And I think, yeah, so that was one part of, I think, the writing challenge, how to kind of give away the emotions of the character without, you know, without her saying it or doing something crazy, because she's pretty passive throughout the film until the final scenes. Of course, there's also this question of ancient traditions and rituals, and how they manifest itself in contemporary societies, whether or not they have a place in contemporary societies, whether or not they have any effect on modern day problems, etc. And I didn't want the main focus of the film to be this per se. It's there definitely in the film, just because these two main characters of the films, they are kind of representing two different parts of Mongolian society right now. But I didn't want to criticize anything. My goal is not to criticize this ancient ritualistic culture. I think even representing it as it is on film is a way for me to say that it actually does have a part in our contemporary culture. And yeah, it was kind of, so my goal was to talk about these issues, but at the same time, really try to give a sense of how these two young people are feeling and what, you know, the clash that happens between them. I somehow tried to make it make sense without putting it into words in an overt kind of way. Yeah, but I don't know if it's making sense without having seen the films. I wish I had sent you guys the link before.
No, I think you 100% achieved this. There's so much nuance to the film and the characters, and to have that window into that spiritual journey is something that we had never seen, and so we find that so special. It's so unique, and it's you know, really something that I think viewers will that will resonate with people, seeing that type of tradition on screen. Thank you.
And following that, I think it's just very powerful. I mean, I think all these stories really do kind of show people in very tough circumstances, dealing with, you know, really serious hardships and conflict. And yet they're all stories that all kind of end with a place of where there's a means for survival. There's maybe even a means for hope for, you know, people involved. And I guess I'd love to hear from, you know, the filmmakers too, just about, you know, addressing that theme, trying to kind of find like thinking about that theme of survival, and if you do survive, what can you bring out of that experience? And I think maybe it's, I mean, certainly something that's very powerful in Black Bodies. If Kelly wants to talk about that.
Yeah, I think for Black bodies, the Black woman is the one who survives. And so I think it's important, for me, that spoke to the position of Black women in society, being the survivors, having to take care after the situation happens, and it's no longer a news story. Who has to take care of that? You know, who has to be the person to be strong and to move on? Who raises the children? Who continues, and who carries the story and the traditions forward? And it's Black women. And so for me, that last shot in the film was about the survival of Black women, and how we don't have a choice but to continue and push forward and be the strong one in that situation. And so I definitely think that last shot is the continuation, is that survival story. What does that look like? And I like to leave my films with kind of like a cliffhanger, so people then can continue that story and carry on and think about it more themselves, and that becomes the longer part of what that film is.
Amazing. Thanks very much. I think it's very true. And yeah, maybe to Pilar, same thing. And you really do have, I mean, it's, if you haven't seen, I mean, but you know, watching this, I've seen the film, but it is the earth, well, the world is not in a good place in Pilar right from the onset. So, but you do have it does come to a place where you think, well, maybe there's a way forward from this kind of scenario.
Yeah, and I think of the two characters, they both have a different way of dealing with their situation. Because, yeah, they're kind of trapped in this place, and one of them tries to really hold on to past structures and tries to keep everything together as it was. And in doing that, really creates a sort of prison almost.
Yeah.
For our main character.
Yeah. And Pilar is just trying to figure out what's so scary about the outside world. How can I go there without being afraid, and how can I let go? And it's especially a lot about being independent, that you cannot always rely on each other to actually survive in a harsh environment. And I think with Pilar, she definitely she's already quite independent, but she's just figuring out a way, how can I leave my friend behind and still be strong and different and myself? And she definitely finds a way, but it's quite difficult for the one that stays behind and being left alone. His name is Balder, but you never hear it in the movie. But he in the end also has to find a way to carry on and see if he will follow her or stay behind, or what he will do to actually survive. So there's definitely a theme in there of independence, and also a bit of a breakup, I guess, in a very large metaphorical way. So yeah.
Thanks very much. And same for Mountain Cat, where you really do kind of, you know, have an amazing, you know, lead character who kind of comes to some kind of place like this. I mean, there is a suggestion that she's going to, you know, maybe break out of this, maybe not. I mean, maybe she doesn't need to break out. I mean, I guess I'm sort of wondering, like, what was that sort of takeaway or that theme for you, Julma?
Yeah, I think initially when I was writing the film, I wanted it to have a much more clearer, hopeful ending. But it was very interesting how, because as I said, the two characters are connected to a feature film. But it was interesting how in this short film, the main protagonist, the girl, she just kind of took on. And the ending is much more ambiguous than I had originally planned. I think she's looking out into a very ambiguous and very unclear future. You know, what's behind her. She's the final shot is kind of her sitting, and in the background is the city of Ulaanbaatar. And I think it's more unclear than what I had intended. Yeah. But what is, I hope comes through is that, you know, both of these two characters are people with immense burdens on their shoulders, because you know, she has this sickness that obviously she did not choose. And he also has this role as a shaman that he also did not choose, and it was imposed on him. So it's basically about these, you know, two people who are trying to kind of, not trying in a conscious way, but in this film they do kind of break through their certain roles in that moment. She's no longer the sick girl at the end, and he's definitely not the shaman boy, you know, at the end. And so there is definitely this act of independence and breaking through, for sure. But I think emotionally it's an ambiguous future for the main character.
Great, thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this Q&A session, but we want to thank all of you filmmakers for being here today and sharing your amazing films with us, and kind of these ideas and final thoughts about your films as well. We think that they'll really make an impression, and we're excited that everyone's been here to share their journey. So thank you so much, and we hope everyone takes care.